Hi guys, it's Huma, I'm just Phoebe and welcome back to another Doctor Who themed video for you. So today I am reviewing the first Doctor serial, the Aztects. Now this is probably going to be as short as anything because let's just see where we get on with this review. Anyway, if you've never seen my face on your screens before, please click that big red subscribe button down below and also click the notifications bell so you get notifications every single time I upload so you don't miss one of my reviews and series 13 content or whatever. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. So the Aztects, this serial aired on 23rd of May 1964. Now this is just a serial that quite frankly I'm not a massive fan of, and there's several reasons to why I'm not a massive fan to this serial, but probably because it's the most boring one I have ever seen. And I liked the aspect of this story. I completely and utterly adored the aspect to this story. I loved the Aztec side of it, the history to it. But I think the thing that let it down most of all was not having some sort of villain for the Doctor and friends to defeat. That's why this serial is quite not probably one of my favourites. Apart from that, I thoroughly enjoyed the Barbara being an Aztec god. I thought that was a very good, interesting piece of dialogue that they included like that. I thought that was absolutely fantastically done. So yeah, I thought that was amazing. That was how that was done. That Barbara got to be an Aztec god throughout the entire 4-part story. This is obviously a 4-part story, not a long part, so I was able to suffer through it. Things I do for YouTube, guys. I watch these reviews. I do these reviews so you guys don't have to review them yourself. I save a bit of time. But yeah, I liked the aspect of this story. That was the only thing I liked. Now on to the negative stuff. There's going to be a lot of negative. The thing I didn't like about this serial was there wasn't any monster for the Doctor to defeat. Nothing for the Doctor and friends to defeat. They all just stood there talking, which as much as I love, I hate the fact that it was just a lot of pre-action and not action and post-action. So that's, for that reason, that's a negative point. Also, Susan doesn't get to do an awful lot in this serial, in this story either, which is a shame because I really like her. She's a very relatable kind of character, which is a real shame. She's barely in this at all. I mean, she's barely in this story at all, which is why I think it's let down by the lack of character development here. Barbara's the only one who actually gets to have anything to do with the plot. She's like being the Aztec god, and she's the only one in this particular story that actually gets to do anything or is relevant to the entire story / plot. So yeah, she's the only one who's actually who actually gets to do anything within this story. The Doctor is gallivanting off trying to figure out how to get out of the tomb again. Ian is off playing a guard. Susan is off being married off somewhere. So yeah, Barbara's the only one in this story that actually gets to do something throughout the entire story. She's actually relevant to the story. The rest, the Doctor, Barbara, the Doctor, Ian and Susan, however, aren't at all relevant to this story. Although I did like the fact that Barbara and Susan come up the TARDIS first at the very beginning of the story. Like, it is fantastic how they do that, how they connect with how they come out first before the Doctor and Ian. It's a nice change of pace. What also lets this episode down, I think, as well, is the pacing. Pacing's a big thing with me with Doctor Who. I love well-paced episodes like Gridlock, The Runaway Bride and so on. I can go on forever about well-paced Doctor Who episodes. But the issue with this one was it was paced out all wrongly. It was very slow in the first part and very slow throughout the entire story. There isn't a lot of action. The only action we get to see is Ian having a little bit of a fight with another Aztec person. That's the only bit of action we get to see, I got to see, which is very disappointing. And the Aztecs aren't at all important in this Doctor Who story. They're just nothing. They're not villainous Aztecs, which I would have loved to see the Doctor fight an alien Aztec person. I would have loved to see that. But I don't know. This wasn't at all a story that I felt gripped to. It wasn't an engaging story for me anyway. It didn't feel engaging. It just felt like a big chunk of waste of time, really. I mean, this serial back in the day must have been really interesting for Doctor Who fans back in the day, but for me it just wasn't. For me it wasn't. And I don't know whether this is because I watched a Modern Doctor Who episode earlier that day before clicking on the Aztects, or just whether, for me, I just didn't really enjoy it. Now, the only positive side I can say about this is Barbara gets the majority of the screen time in this. I don't know, but also this story was just in one set. You don't get to see the TARDIS set until the end, which is actually really boring. And the pacing was all wrong in this story, and it had a lot to contend with. This story had a lot of competition to do, and for that reason, I think it failed on the engaging side. It was incredibly boring. I watched most of it from behind my phone. It was that boring. I didn't think it was going to be that boring. I thought it was going to be a well-paced story with really good storylines, but it wasn't. It was just boring as anything. Sorry if I'm offending you. Sorry if Aztecs is your favourite. This is just my opinion. I don't mean to come off rude. The other issue I had about this is the episode would have been fine if they would have had the Aztecs do more stuff. I would have been fine with it if they would have shown me the Aztecs doing more stuff, more of their daily rituals and stuff, and not just eating people. That's creepy. That is fucking creepy. I loved Barbara's role in this. Again, that's the only thing I'm positive to say. Ian got a bit of action fighting another Aztec. That's pretty much it. And the Doctor gets a bit sciencey with the cave and gets engaged for the first time, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, so I think this story needed to be improved, I think, before it aired. I think they should have done like some sort of alien Aztec that comes in and wrecks the place to make it more engaging, more interesting. Now, this is probably the first story that didn't have some kind of alien threat in it. Like, Akiza Matahara's didn't either, but at least that was interesting. But this was just like, it was on the same set, the entire 4 parts. The entire 4 parts are on the same set, the same constant set, the same part of the set all the time. The episodes were really, really slow in the middle. There was a bit of action with Ian fighting an Aztec god in this episode, and then that was it. There was no more action or post-action at all in this episode. It was just completely out of pace. I have an issue with pacing. I like paced episodes to be spread out really nicely, but this wasn't. Susan also gets a role in it as well. She's not actually part 2, but she's in parts 3 and 4 and 1, which is quite good, but she's hardly in the second part anyway. She's forced to get a husband, which is bad for her. So yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the Aztec episode. I don't think it's the right episode for you guys to engage your brains with, because you end up watching majority of it behind a phone screen anyway. That's what I ended up doing. So yeah, it's not the perfect story. It's not the perfect story. So I would probably rate this story, and I'm being generous here, a 5.5 out of 10. That's me being generous because the pacing was all wrong on this episode, and I just don't feel like this episode was the right first Doctor episode in the series. I don't think this was a very good episode for me to enjoy. It was as dull as anything, I think. And the next serial I'm going to review, I'm hoping it's going to be slightly more interesting than the one. Guys, I do these reviews for you so you guys don't have to suffer through what I suffer doing these reviews. Hopefully when I get onto the coloured ones, they'll be a bit more exciting. The Censors is the next serial I have to watch. That will be on Tuesday, that review, so look out for that. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I'm sorry, this is actually one of my lowest rated Doctor Who Classic episode videos, so sorry. But yeah, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and make sure you click that big red subscribe button down below and click the notifications bell so you get notifications every single time I upload. Until then, see you next time. Alonzi.